You're listening to the Good Food CFO podcast, where we challenge the status quo of the food industry, celebrate good food founders who are building businesses on their own terms, introduce industry disruptors, and are redefining equitability. If you're ready to build your financial confidence and join the good food revolution to change the way the food industry does business, you are in the right place. I'm the Good Food CFO and your host, Sarah Delavan. Today on the podcast, I'm answering listener questions. A few months back, we created the JoinTheConvo at thegoodfoodcfo.com email address so that you have a place to send your comments and your questions, as well as your recommendations and suggestions for future episodes. So we've gathered a few questions together related to goal setting for the year ahead, forecasting for a business that isn't in business yet, and budgeting for trade spend with sustainable, profitable growth in mind. Let's get to it. Let's start out by talking about how to think about goal setting for the year ahead. We got a lot of emails and DMs in the community about this. And most of the questions when they came in were phrased kind of like, where do I even get started, right? That was the common question that came in those messages. And many people said, I understand the importance and the value of financial forecasting, but I don't know where to start. And I feel like I don't even know what to put down on paper. How do I think about what I want to achieve in the new year so that I can forecast for it? And I want to say that I absolutely love that you are asking this question, because it tells me that you aren't just going through the motions of creating a forecast. You aren't just saying, okay, we're going to project 25% growth this year, and put that as a revenue goal and move on. You're really wanting to think about, how do I set myself up for success? And then how do I, create a roadmap and a financial forecast to support these goals that I have? So I think first and foremost, you have to have some clarity on your business vision. What do you ultimately want your business to grow into? And I talked with Katie Melezova about this in episode 23 of the podcast. If you haven't heard that episode yet, or maybe it's been a while, now is a great time to go back and listen to that episode, because we really talk through how having a clear vision for your business is so helpful in then determining what your next steps are for moving your business toward that vision. And we also talk about, once you have that vision, how you can start to create very clear goals and objectives in your business that not only affect your business's growth, but also your life, your day-to-day, and your role in the business. You have the ability to create both the business and the life that you want. And this time of year, as we're thinking about goals for the year ahead and creating our forecast, is an amazing time to revisit and ask ourselves, what do we want, right? So when you've got your business vision in mind, and let's be honest, this vision can change, right? But you need to have something in mind right now, right, that you're trying to grow to. And that's going to give you an anchor. And then you can say, okay, that's my big vision for 5 years down the road. Where am I today? And what I typically say, what 3 things can you do this year, this coming year, that will move you toward that big vision? And we call those our objectives, right? So your objectives for this year might be to increase or, even launch B2B sales, right? Wholesale direct sales channel. Maybe that's one of your goals. It's a goal for many of our community members in the coming year. You might have a goal that is to grow a team, right? Maybe you want to grow sales and you want to grow revenue, but you don't have the team in place that allows you the capacity to do so. You might want to bring on a co-packer this year so that in the future, you can focus on growth. Think about the things, not just those financial metrics, not just the unit sales metrics, but what do you need within your business to achieve the goals and objectives that you want to for the future and reach that big business vision. I've been talking a bit on Instagram about how proud I am of a number of our clients and community members this year who focused on 3 to 5 goals and objectives that most of them were never going to be known or seen by the general public or even their customers. These were things like identifying a co-packer who could take on production so that the business owner could focus on sales. They looked like becoming profitable, changing the way that they spent money, changing the way they thought about money, figuring out what their sales strategy was going to be and what their debt strategy was going to be. That was huge for one of my clients and has created a significant financial change within the business. But externally, things don't look that different, right? Another client really focused on growing a team, finding the right people, which is never an easy job, training them so that he could spend more time out of the kitchen growing the business. Now, they also had big goals like launching, a new sales channel, launching a new product line, and really exciting things that people can see from the outside. But I share these stories with you because I think it's important to remember that not everything is like a big snazzy goal. Some of the most important things we do take consistency, focus, and hard work, and no one except you and maybe your bookkeeper or your CFO or your accountant will know about them, right? And those goals are just as important as well. And, we created the vision and goal setting course that's now available on the Good Food CFO website for this very reason, to walk you through the thought process of what is my vision? Am I clear on that? What are the things that are going to move my business toward my vision, within the next year? And what are the top 3 to 5 things that I want to achieve in the next 12 months? And then what are the first 3 that I'm going to work on? We talk through, what strategies are and how tactics support those strategies. And then talk about how all of those things, all of that detail then makes forecasting really clear for you, right? Because your objectives, the tactics that you're going to implement to make your strategies successful. And then you can identify which of these things is going to cost money, or which of these things is going to take my time, right? Or which of these things is going to require a new employee. And then you can forecast accordingly. So as I said, I love that you're asking this question. It's just about sitting down and thinking through things, and don't rush this. I think that as entrepreneurs, we think this should be quick. I can sit down and I can write out my goals for the new year. I do this over the course of a couple of days. I might start it, on December 24th in the morning with my coffee, and I might finish it after the start of the new year because I'm really thinking about and pondering what are the things I'm going to focus on and what are the things that we're going to spend money and time and energy on in the new year. And then we create our forecast from there. Now let's talk about forecasting for a business that isn't in business yet, meaning you aren't selling a product yet. Your website might not even be launched yet, but you plan on being in business in the next year, or maybe even within the next few months. And you're thinking about forecasting, you want to create a plan of some sort, but where do you even get started? And how should you approach the forecasting process for the new year? First, I want to say everything I just talked about in terms of having a vision, right, and objectives goes for you as well. So even if you're, just getting started, having this clarity is going to be really helpful for you. But when it comes to actually doing the forecasting, oftentimes for businesses that haven't yet officially launched, I like to think of the forecasting process as a information gathering process. So for example, you may have a good idea of what your expenses are going to be, right? Those are typically the easiest things to identify. You should know your cost of goods sold. You should know what your, operating subscriptions will be, to a certain extent. You should know if you're paying rent or not. You should have your insurance information kind of estimated, and all of that can be put into your financial forecast. Then if you're working out your pricing, you can figure that out and solidify that through the forecasting process. But if you already have it, then that's great. And you can include, that information in your forecast as well. And with that, what I think is really valuable for someone who hasn't yet launched their business is to identify, what is my break-even point? How much do I need to generate in revenue? And thus, how many units do I need to sell of my product in order to break even in my business? And I think that that is a very eye-opening exercise. And it's one that I walk every new business owner through when we work together. You might find that in order to break even, you need to sell more product than you actually have the capacity to produce in the current environment or situation that you're in with your production. That is great information to have. It doesn't mean you need to scrap everything and start over, but it means you now know that at some point, in order to break even, you're going to have to make some changes, right? It also can help you identify, if you have a goal of opening, let's say 4 new stores, 4 big stores in the next year, what is that going to cost you? Right? If these stores are the types of stores that have free fills or slotting fees, you can plan this all out and get a really great bird's eye view of how much cash am I going to need, right? And where is that cash going to come from? You can start to create that plan. So I think for business owners who haven't yet launched their businesses, approach forecasting as an information gathering process. You'll identify what you know and what you don't know. You'll identify your break-even point. You'll identify, how does your plan look when you really map it out? Does what you had in your mind actually work on paper, right? Or where does it differ from what you had in mind? And I think that there's a ton of value in that. And as you gather new information, let's say as you learn new expenses or as you solidify certain expenses, you can take them and update your forecast with them. And then, of course, once you launch your business, it's a great opportunity to revisit the forecast that you created at the end of every month to see how close was I in my projections to what my reality is. And then you can modify your forecast from there. And there's a lot of really valuable information that you can learn from that process as well. Take it from someone who launched her first business without a financial forecast. We had a business plan, but we didn't have a financial forecast. And with nothing to measure our, revenue against and our expenses against, we kind of didn't know really what was going on in the business. So I can't recommend doing a forecast enough to a business owner who's not yet in business. All right, let's dive into our last question, which came from Cameron, who is one of our community members. I thought that this was a great question and a great follow-up to both the Rethinking Cash Flow episode as well as the forecasting episode. So Cameron writes, I'd be curious if you would be interested in discussing budgeting as it relates to general marketing. For instance, we hear about trade spends of 10 to 25% and marketing spends of 2 to 3%, et cetera. And I think some larger companies will have fixed budgets as a percentage of revenue, but how does that apply to smaller companies? And how can we use this kind of thinking to support sustainable, profitable growth? I'm so glad that we got this question, because the idea of a target trade spend percentage or, marketing budget represents something that is really common across the food industry as a whole, but particularly in CPG. And that is the idea of industry standards and replicating what another business has done to achieve success. And I'm putting quotes around success here because typically success looks like high revenue numbers and lots of units sold, right? But that has actually put a lot of businesses out of business, even darlings in the industry. Because despite big revenue numbers and big marketing budgets, there wasn't a core business model that was sustainable. So while it's good to be aware of what is considered an industry standard, I don't think that you need to try to match what industry standards are. And if that's the case, you may be asking, then how do we think about trade spend to support sustainable, profitable growth? Let's start by talking about what trade spend is first, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Trade spend in CPG includes free fills, slotting fees, advertisements, demos, right? In-store demos, intro allowances, manufacturer chargebacks, scans, coupons, etc. Free fills, slotting fees, advertisements, and demos are a type of trade spend that actually cost you money. Money is leaving your bank account to pay a fee to someone else, typically the distributor or the retail store. Intro allowances, manufacturer chargebacks, which we abbreviate as MCBs, scans, and coupons are all reductions on the amount that you will get paid for your product, either immediately in the case of an intro allowance or after the fact with the other ones that I've listed out. This is really important to note because the different types of trade spend affect your cash flow in different ways. Okay. Now let's talk about the purpose of trade spend, because the type of trade spend that you'll choose to budget for depends on, or should depend on, the stage of business that you're in and the goals that you have. Felice covers all of the different types of trade spend, their purpose, and how you get charged for them inside our annual planning and forecasting course. And I'm going to share a couple of examples with you here. Advertisements can be a brand awareness builder, right? That may be the purpose of an advertisement, not necessarily to sell a product, but to make people aware of your product. Coupons are intended to drive trial, right? It's a discount on your product to get someone to try it for the first time. Free fills and intro allowances are intended to lower the risk of bringing a new product on shelf for a retailer and are intended to help you secure a new retail customer. So you can see just with those three examples that they have very different purposes, and you can see how you would budget for different types of trade spend based on your objectives and goals for the year ahead. If you're a young business who has goals of opening new stores, and maybe you want to open one new customer per quarter and each of them has a free fill requirement, that is going to cost you several thousands of dollars. A real life example is a brand who recently opened a regional chain and paid free fill fees of $17,500. So that's in addition to the cost of creating the product and shipping the product to the distribution center. The brand also paid the distributor $17,500. You may have a good number of customers in your business and you don't want to open more doors, but you would like to increase velocity. And what that means is to increase the number of units that you are selling in each individual store. In this case, you're going to want to focus on trade spend and promotional efforts that drive trial and create new return customers in the stores that you're already in. So thinking about trade spend budgets in support of sustainable, profitable growth, to me, means letting go of a percentage range and instead creating a trade spend plan that is specific to your business, that grows sales in the way that you want and moves your business forward toward your big vision. And not only that, but that to do it at a pace that you can afford financially and in terms of your production capacity. So if you think about it this way and you lay out your plan, once you have it in front of you, you can see the associated costs, right? And if it's feasible for your business to tackle this plan at the pace that you've laid out, maybe you'll identify that you need some funding or investment to make it happen. And then you can take the steps necessary to do that. Or maybe you'll decide to modify your plan. It depends on you and your business and what you see in your trade spend projections. Something that I really like and think is really valuable in the course that Felice and I created is how she teaches you about trade spend and the thought process behind choosing the right options for your business. And also inside the toolkit, the ability to see what your total trade spend costs are after you lay out your plan and how they're going to affect your gross profit margin, your overall profitability, and your cash flow, I think provides a ton of valuable information and helps to build some confidence around, whether or not a plan is feasible or how you'll go about making it a reality. The method of planning this way, thinking about, what is right for your business and what are the objectives that you want to achieve, is called zero-based budgeting, because it's essentially providing a fresh start to a new year. And it makes you pay attention to where your money will go. And it gets you into the habit of asking the question, is this promotion or is this marketing expense really necessary? Can it produce the outcomes I want it to achieve? Which is very different than saying we have a 25% trade spend budget and putting that into your financial plan and not really thinking through what every little thing is that you're going to plan to do. Inside the course, Felice also talks about the 80-20 rule and how she leaves space for, some unplanned things. And I love that as well. But I hope, Cameron, that this information was helpful for you. And I hope it's been helpful for, the other listeners as well, to think about, the fact that you don't have to act according to industry standards. You don't have to budget according to industry standards. You don't have to grow according to industry standards. You are in control of your business and how you drive your business forward. We are going to be doing more episodes just like this in the future. So send us your questions. You can email them to jointheconvo@thegoodfoodcfo.com. And remember to check out the Good Food CFO website for courses and tools to help you build financial confidence and prepare for a successful year ahead. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review the show wherever you listen. It is the #1 way to help other food founders find the show. I'll be back to kick off season 6 with a brand new episode on January 9th.